I could hear him shouting behind me, but I didn't look back. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs felt like they would give out. The toxic relationship that almost destroyed my mental health. Have you ever felt like you were drowning in plain sight, with everyone around you oblivious to your struggle? Can a relationship that starts as a fairy tale turn into your worst nightmare? This is the story of how I, Nneoma, a successful event planner in Lagos, Nigeria, nearly lost everything, including my sanity, to a toxic relationship that pushed me to the brink of destruction. It was a warm Lagos evening when I first met Tunde. The air was thick with humidity and the promise of romance. I was at a friend's wedding, meticulously overseeing every detail as the event planner. That's when I saw him, tall, dark, and undeniably charming. Our eyes met across the room, and in that moment I felt a spark that would soon ignite into a raging inferno. Tunde approached me with a confidence that was both alluring and intimidating. His smile was infectious, his words smooth as honey. "I've been watching you all evening," he said, his deep voice sending shivers down my spine. "The way you command this room is mesmerizing. I'd love to get to know the woman behind this flawless event." I was flattered, of course. At 28, I had built a reputation as one of Lagos' top event planners. My Instagram feed was a carefully curated showcase of picture-perfect celebrations, each one a testament to my creativity and attention to detail. But behind the scenes, I was lonely. My career had left little time for romance, and Tunde's interest was like a breath of fresh air. Our courtship was a whirlwind. Tunde showered me with attention, lavish gifts, and grand gestures that made me feel like the center of his universe. He'd surprise me with impromptu weekend getaways to exotic locations, filling my social media with enviable snapshots of our seemingly perfect relationship. But as the weeks turned into months, subtle changes began to creep in. It started with small comments about my appearance. "You're not wearing that, are you?" he'd ask, his tone laced with disapproval. At first I brushed it off, even feeling flattered that he cared so much about how I looked. Then came the questions about my work. "Why do you need to stay so late at the office?" He'd probe, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Who are all these men you're always talking to at events?" The seed of doubt he planted began to grow, making me second-guess every interaction I had with male clients or colleagues. I found myself constantly on edge, trying to anticipate his moods and reactions. The charming man I had fallen for was slowly being replaced by someone I didn't recognize, someone whose anger could flare up at the slightest provocation. One evening, after a particularly successful event, I came home on cloud 9. I couldn't wait to share my triumph with Tunde. But as I walked through the door, my heart sank. He was sitting in the dark, his face a mask of fury. "Where have you been?" he demanded, his voice low and dangerous. "At work, Tunde. You knew I had a big event tonight," I replied, confusion and fear battling within me. He stood up abruptly, closing the distance between us in 2 long strides. "Don't lie to me," he shouted, his hand slamming against the wall beside my head. "I saw the way you were laughing with that client. Do you think I'm a fool?" I flinched, my body instinctively shrinking away from him. "Tunde, please," I whispered, tears welling up in my eyes. "It's not what you think. I love you. I would never..." But my words fell on deaf ears. For the next hour, he berated me, accusing me of infidelity, of not loving him enough, of putting my career before our relationship. By the time he stormed out, leaving me crumpled on the floor, I felt hollow, drained of all the joy and pride I had felt just hours before. This pattern continued, escalating over time. My once vibrant social life began to wither away as I made excuses to avoid gatherings with friends and family. I was too ashamed to admit the truth, that the man they had once admired was slowly crushing my spirit. My work began to suffer as well. The creativity that had once flowed so freely now felt stifled. I second-guessed every decision, paralyzed by the fear of Tunde's reaction. My clients noticed the change, and slowly but surely, my hard-earned reputation began to crumble. But still, I clung to the relationship. I convinced myself that if I could just be better, more attentive, more understanding, things would improve. I believed that the man I had fallen in love with was still there, buried beneath layers of anger and insecurity. It wasn't until my best friend, Adaora, staged an intervention that I began to see the full extent of my situation. She had noticed the changes in me, the weight loss, the dark circles under my eyes, the way I flinched at loud noises. She gathered a group of our closest friends and my family, all of whom expressed their concern and love for me. "Nneoma," Adaora said, her eyes brimming with tears, "we're worried about you. This isn't you. The Nneoma we know is strong, vibrant, full of life. What's happening to you?" I broke down then, the walls I had built around myself crumbling in the face of their love and concern. Through sobs, I recounted the months of emotional abuse, the constant fear, the crushing self-doubt that had become my daily reality. But even then, even with the truth laid bare before me, I couldn't bring myself to leave. "He loves me," I insisted weakly. "He just needs help. I can't abandon him." My friends and family left that day, frustrated and heartbroken. I could see the disappointment in their eyes, and it only added to the mountain of shame I was carrying. Weeks passed, and things with Tunde grew worse. His outbursts became more frequent, his accusations more outlandish. I walked on eggshells, never knowing what might set him off. The breaking point came on a rainy Tuesday evening. I had just finished a small birthday party for a long-time client. As I was packing up, my phone buzzed with a message from Tunde. "Where are you? Come home now." The tone of the message sent a chill down my spine. I rushed home, my heart pounding with dread. As I opened the door, I was met with a scene of chaos. Tunde had ransacked our apartment, clothes and belongings strewn everywhere. He stood in the middle of the living room, his eyes wild with rage. In his hand, he clutched my phone, the one I had accidentally left at home that morning. "Who is he?" Tunde roared, waving the phone in my face. "Who?" I asked, genuinely confused and terrified. Don't play dumb with me," he shouted, grabbing my arm roughly. "I saw the messages. You're cheating on me." I realized with horror that he must have seen the innocent exchanges with a new male client I had been working with. But before I could explain, I felt a sharp pain as Tunde's hand connected with my cheek. The world seemed to slow down in that moment. As I touched my stinging face, something inside me finally snapped. This was no longer about love or trying to help Tunde. This was about survival. With a strength I didn't know I possessed, I pushed past him and ran. I ran out of the apartment, down the stairs, and into the rainy night. I could hear him shouting behind me, but I didn't look back. I ran until my lungs burned, and my legs felt like they would give out. I found myself at Adaora's doorstep, soaking wet and shaking uncontrollably. When she opened the door and saw me, she didn't ask any questions. She simply pulled me into a tight embrace and whispered, "You're safe now. It's over." The next few weeks were a blur. I filed a police report and got a restraining order against Tunde. But the damage had been done. Years of emotional abuse had taken their toll, and I found myself spiraling into a deep depression. I couldn't sleep, plagued by nightmares of Tunde's angry face. I couldn't eat, the mere thought of food making me nauseous. My once thriving business all but collapsed as I became a shell of my former self. It was Adaora who finally convinced me to seek professional help. "Nneoma," she said gently one day, "you're one of the strongest people I know, but even the strongest warriors need help sometimes. Please, talk to someone." With her support, I started therapy. It was a difficult and painful process, peeling back the layers of trauma and self-doubt that had accumulated over the years. There were days when I wanted to give up, when the weight of my experiences felt too heavy to bear. But slowly, with the help of my therapist and the unwavering support of my friends and family, I began to heal. I learned to recognize the signs of a toxic relationship. I worked on rebuilding my self-esteem and rediscovering the confident, vibrant woman I had once been. As I healed, I also began to share my story. At first, it was just with close friends and family, but as I grew stronger, I felt a calling to speak out more publicly. I started a blog, sharing my experiences and offering support to others who might be trapped in similar situations. To my surprise, the response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from women and men across Nigeria and beyond, sharing their own stories of toxic relationships and thanking me for giving voice to their struggles. It wasn't easy, putting my pain and vulnerability out there for the world to see. But with each post, each speaking engagement, each person I was able to help, I felt a little bit stronger, a little more like myself. Today, 2 years after that rainy night when I finally found the courage to leave, I can say that I am not just surviving, but thriving. My event planning business is back on track, stronger than ever. But more importantly, I've found a sense of purpose in advocating for mental health awareness and supporting survivors of toxic relationships. I won't pretend that the journey has been easy. There are still days when the memories of my time with Tunde threaten to overwhelm me, but I've learned to face those moments with courage and self-compassion. As I stand here today, sharing my story with you, I want to leave you with this message. You are stronger than you know. If you're in a toxic relationship, know that you deserve better. It's not your fault, and you're not alone. There is help available, and there is hope. My name is Nneoma, and this is the story of how I survived a toxic relationship that almost destroyed my mental health. But more than that, it's a story of resilience, of the power of support, and of the incredible strength we all have within us. If this story resonates with you or someone you know, please don't stay silent. Reach out for help. You deserve to be safe, respected, and loved. Remember, the first step towards healing is believing that you deserve it. Thank you for listening to this story. May it give you hope, strength, and the courage to write your own story of survival and triumph.
Till next time.